Dorry and Brogy were relieved to see Luffy still healthy. It had been 2 years since they last met, so both were overjoyed. At the same time, Marcus Mars successfully infiltrated after crashing straight through the shield. He wanted to stop Vegapunk's live video broadcast. Below, Jinbei couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the giant creature. The bird's haki was so terrifying that even he was afraid. Therefore, he had to quickly bring Zoro back and leave this dangerous island with the other crewmates. Jinbei asked Zoro to follow him, but he refused. Lucci, despite having 3 slashes, had not yet fallen. Just by looking at his eyes, Zoro knew he could still fight. The opponent then turned to look at the two of them, just as Sanji contacted to ask if he had taken Zoro away yet. Jinbei immediately held his crewmate tightly, telling him that he had won and didn't need to fight anymore, while the opponent slowly approached. Seeing this, Jinbei used Fishman Karate to attack Lucci, a move used to create a diversion and give the other two a chance to escape. After transforming back into his human form, Lucci was surprised that Marcus Mars was here. He asked his subordinate where York was. Zoro, being led away by Jinbei, also wondered what the giant body of the monster was. And as for Lucci, facing the question from his superior, he showed fear. He then stated that York was still being held in the control room on the 4th floor, Building A. The two who just escaped were Roronoa Zoro and Jinbei, the Son of the Sea, and there were 5 other members of the Straw Hat Pirates here as well. They and 2 other Vegapunks were preparing to leave through the back exit of the lava phase, and in the basement of the laboratory, there were still 85 Cypher Paul agents and 4 Seraphim. Vegapunk's broadcast would continue in another 6 minutes. Hearing this, Marcus Mars seemed very satisfied with this useful information. He praised Lucci for doing a good job and said he had no more questions. Before letting him leave, Lucci had a request. It was about his severely injured crewmate in the control room. Please, spare him. Marcus Mars said that was very difficult. Insects are sometimes crushed, even if one has no intention of doing so. This extinguished Lucci's hope of saving his crewmate, because, after all, they were just insects in the eyes of the Gorosei. Back with Luffy, he felt that the 2 old giants were as strong as ever. They said they almost didn't recognize him, and that the Straw Hat crew must be the ones who changed the most in 2 years. Brogy asked why Luffy knew about the legendary Elbaf god's form. They were truly happy to see this form. Luffy said he didn't understand what he was talking about, but to talk about it later because they needed to deal with the 2 monsters first. After being attacked by the 2 giants, Saturn and Warcury had fully recovered. They considered the 3 to be an unpleasant combination. In Dorry's eyes, the 2 monsters in front of them were as large as the wild beasts in the Elbaf forest. Luffy reminded his 2 friends, saying that his crew didn't want to fight anymore, so they should find a way to escape. Dorry agreed, because, in fact, they had just met Sanji, who had relayed the entire plan and asked them to come here to take Luffy away. Brogy said that after reading the news about their group in the newspaper, they came here to help. The newspaper wrote that Luffy was a villain, had taken Vegapunk hostage, and was surrounded by the Marines. Hearing this, even Luffy chuckled. He didn't expect the newspaper to write such a thing. Currently, the members of the Straw Hat Pirates were separated, so they had to quickly regroup and leave this place. To inform everyone, Dorry blew a large horn, making the sound echo across the island. On the coastline, after hearing the horn, the other members of the giant pirate crew recognized it. Their captain had met Luffy, so there was no need to fight anymore. Before leaving, they also mocked the Marine soldiers below, saying that even if they attacked the Marine battleship, there would be no treasure to steal. Inside, Warcury was unhappy to realize that it was a signal to retreat, and he also wanted to issue a warning so that no one could escape. The giant pig snorted and roared, the deafening sound accompanied by haki power, forcing the 2 giants to use their shields to block. The entire island was shaking violently, and the weaker Marine soldiers were knocked unconscious by the haki. Even the giants were affected by this roar. Luffy, not hiding behind the giants' shields, bore the full brunt of the pressure Warcury created. His body began to stretch comically, to the point where his 2 eyes and the scar on his chest flew off his body. Witnessing this scene, Dorry and Brogy were so shocked they couldn't believe their eyes. Everything on Luffy had been blown away by the wind, leaving only his pants. He cried out, but showed no pain, asking his 2 friends to pick up his 2 eyes to put them back. Dorry immediately used his sword to catch the things Luffy dropped. He then retrieved everything and put them back on his body as if nothing had happened. Brogy asked if Luffy was okay. He just smiled and thanked them. Luffy said he was fine, then stretched his face like rubber to prove what he had just said. Dorry laughed loudly, thinking his body was very funny now, while Brogy admitted that Luffy was much stronger than before. And now they had to face the one who created the roar of Conqueror's Haki before they could leave. Warcury looked at the 3 of them and called them insects. Luffy told his 2 friends that the one in front of them was an arrogant member of the world government. The opponent said that to ensure Luffy would not return to his original form, he would chop him into pieces. With that, he charged to attack, and Dorry and Brogy immediately had to use their shields to block. The pig's fangs had turned into sharp blades. If the 2 giants hadn't stood to block the attack, Luffy's body would have been cut into many pieces. When asked if they knew who the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates was, the 2 giants replied in unison that Luffy was their friend. Immediately after, they used their strength to knock the beast away. Saturn then stepped in to take over the attack position, saying he didn't care about the relationship between insects like them. He wanted to erase Luffy from world history forever. Saturn spat out highly poisonous balls towards Luffy, who reminded the 2 giants not to touch them. He himself pulled up a nearby coconut tree to create a baseball bat to block. Using his imagination, Luffy used his teeth to shape the bat. Then he painted another layer of paint to make the bat shiny, and he also put on the hat with the number 56. As soon as the poisonous balls flew over, Luffy used the giant bat to perfectly hit them all away, even saying, "I'm returning these poisonous balls to you." Warcury and Saturn were hit, causing a huge explosion. Luffy was very surprised, not expecting it to explode so loudly. But this was their chance to escape. The other crew members warned that the flames were spreading closer, so they had to leave immediately. Brogy and Dorry thought the 2 monsters had exploded into smithereens, but Luffy explained that they were immortal beings and couldn't die. Even though he had tried everything, they still recovered, and they had never heard of such an ability or race. It was best to run away now before something worse happened. At the same time, Usopp's group was struggling to pull the Sunny out of the pile of trees, but despite using all their strength, they couldn't move it even a little. Nami looked at this scene with a bit of worry. "I don't know when I'll be able to leave here. Robin still needs rest, while Jinbei has brought Zoro back. Since the flying device ran out of energy, he switched to running on his own feet to be faster. On Bonnie's side, she is still running towards the giant tribe's ship. Kuma shows no signs of waking up due to severe injuries, and Atlas then warns about those standing in front of the ship, blocking their way. These are the 3 Marine Vice Admirals tasked with eliminating Bonnie. Sanji, on the other side, is also racing against time. He has a bad feeling about what's about to happen. Vegapunk's broadcast is still ongoing, and seeing this, York, who is tied up below, doesn't understand what they are trying to do. She demands to be uncuffed, but she can't, and at this moment, York's cry helps the giant bird discover her. Marcus Mars asks where the room on the screen that Vegapunk is showing is, and York, completely unaware of who this is, shows fear. The scene shifts to Admiral Kizaru, who is still lying on the ship. When asked where his injury is, he says this: "I have a very deep wound in my heart, but no one needs to do anything. Just let me rest." Inside the island at this moment, the giant robot has fully awakened. Although his body is very old, he still stands up and calls out, "Joy Boy." The spear that was stabbed into him is pulled out, and right below, some Marine soldiers are still chasing the members of the giant pirate crew. However, they have to stop because they can't believe their eyes. There is something much larger than the giants. This scene is seen by the entire Marine faction from a distance. The burning flame cannot stop the giant machine's advance. As he moves, he apologizes to Joy Boy. The situation on the island was utterly chaotic. Frankie's group was blocked from escaping by the vice admirals, while Sanji was trying to get Vegapunk's body to safety. On the other side, Zoro continued to take down the last active cyborgs. His speed was so great that the pacifistas, even after detecting their targets, couldn't react in time to attack. Seizing the opportunity, the Marines mobilized their entire force to bombard Egghead Island once more. This time, their goal was to wipe out the entire area, leaving the Straw Hat Pirates no escape. Zoro never expected that Bonnie, a mere 12-year-old girl, would be entrusted by Vegapunk with enough power to destroy an entire nation. He considered the doctor a foolish traitor. Meanwhile, the remaining giants had begun to return to their ship. The order from the Gorosei was to sink the Elbaf ship to prevent anyone from escaping. Cornered, Bonnie was forced to fight to protect Kuma. The first to engage the Vice Admiral was Frankie. His opponent possessed a steam-powered arm, but Frankie's steel arm was stronger, and he quickly defeated his foe. Immediately after, another Vice Admiral targeted Bonnie. The girl asked the accompanying giant to take care of her father, then plunged straight into battle. When her opponent called Kuma a weapon, Bonnie's anger erupted. Using her devil fruit power, she transformed him into a child. The Vice Admiral tried to beg for forgiveness, but Bonnie, who was also just a little girl, didn't hesitate to teach him a lesson he wouldn't forget. As she attacked, she shouted, "My father is a hero!" "Take back what you just said." Atlas also quickly rushed in to assist, delivering a punch that sent the third Vice Admiral flying. She asked where Luffy and the others were. If they hadn't arrived yet, the group would have to temporarily retreat. However, Frankie suggested defeating all three Vice Admirals before their comrades arrived. Despite being defeated, the Vice Admirals were still seasoned warriors with astonishing resilience. The scene shifted to Marcus Mars. With his colossal body, he terrified York to the point of tears, constantly begging for her life and crying out, "I don't taste good. Please don't eat me." Marcus Mars angrily roared, but the girl continued to cry. Finally, he broke her shackles, freeing York to calm her down. Then, Marcus Mars asked York to take him to the room appearing on the screen, where Vegapunk was broadcasting the video. Since York was also one of Vegapunk's clones, she must know the location. Having no other choice, Marcus Mars used his massive beak to grab York's body and flew off. Meanwhile, the video Vegapunk had prepared was still playing. However, he had not yet revealed the most important thing, perhaps waiting for the right moment. Shaka asked, "Aren't you having coffee?" Vegapunk replied calmly, "I'm very sensitive to hot things." Only 4 minutes remained before he would reveal the truth about the world. At the same time, Marcus Mars had brought York to a room that looked exactly like the one in the video. She confirmed, "This is it. They filmed here." Hearing this, the giant bird opened its mouth, blowing out a powerful stream of fire, incinerating everything around. He believed that if he destroyed everything, Vegapunk's broadcast would be cut off. York frantically rushed to stop him, shouting that destroying this place was useless, because the video was still playing, proving the transmission device was not here. She began to deduce if she put herself in Vegapunk's shoes, he would surely hide the original device somewhere safer. But if Marcus Mars continued to wreak havoc, the consequences would be extremely serious. She warned that the second floor of the building was the weapon deployment area, the first floor was the energy plant, and the third floor was filled with high-pressure gas cylinders. If those exploded simultaneously, all of Punk Records will be blown away. Hearing this, Marcus Mars asked York to think of a solution. She nodded, saying that she would end this stupid broadcast immediately. Just then, Marcus Mars suddenly sensed a sound coming from a small creature. Most likely, the snail messenger. This proved that the room containing Vegapunk's original recording was very close. He immediately asked York to take him there. Meanwhile, inside another building, Stussy could finally breathe a sigh of relief as the giant monster had spared them. She realized that the giant bird was one of the 5 elders, Gorosei. Her teammate beside her also trembled, gasping for breath and joking awkwardly. "Were you abandoned?" Hearing this, Stussy just gave a faint smile. "No need to pity me. I voluntarily stayed to finish the last task." Elsewhere, Nami's group received news that they had to leave Stussy behind. Edison explained that there was no other choice, as someone needed to lower the shield just as the ship escaped. The Frontier Dome system could only be deactivated from the control room, and Stussy had voluntarily taken on that task. Everyone could only accept it. "The best way to thank her," Edison said, "is for all of us to get out of here together." Edison reassured her. "I've calculated everything. This ship will fall straight to the ground, but we still have a chance to land safely." Upon hearing this, Nami and Chopper burst into tears, while the other members announced that the propulsion system was ready. They just needed to wait for Zoro and Jinbei to return. Then they could all jump into the sea. However, Chopper was still worried that this wouldn't be enough to reach the sea surface. Edison laughed, thinking their ship was troublesome. But he also added, "It's that determined spirit that creates miracles. I'm just a scientist, but I believe in you all." He guaranteed that the ship would land safely on the water. After saying this, Lilith suddenly realized something and quickly tried to stop him, but Edison was determined. He immediately flew towards the shield, despite the desperate screams of his friend behind him. According to his calculations, upon impact with the shield, his body would suffer 78% damage. "That's not enough to kill me," Edison said. As soon as he touched the shield, a huge explosion rang out. Those who witnessed it could only stand frozen in shock and pain. Outside the coast, a strange phenomenon was occurring. All the Navy warships were suddenly pulled strongly towards Egghead Island. The reason was Jew Peter. He continuously sucked everything around him into his body. The terrifying suction force made Dorry and Brogy unable to move, and even Luffy, in his Sun God Nika state, was held tight, unable to budge. In this critical situation, Luffy quickly thought of a way. He grabbed Brogy's arm, using the momentum to fly straight up. Nearby, he discovered a building just large enough to stuff into the giant sandworm's mouth. Luffy cut the building in half, lifted it with his muscular form, and shouted, "If you're hungry, eat these buildings!" After saying that, he threw the giant concrete block straight into the opponent's throat. The attack, with terrifying power, made the monster collapse on the spot. Thanks to this, the 3 of them had a chance to continue fleeing. However, using too much strength caused Luffy's body to return to its old man state. Brogy asked in surprise what had happened. Luffy gasped, saying that he had almost run out of energy from food. Hearing about food, the 2 giants remembered that they had brought some fermented shark, the emergency food of the giant race. Its smell was so strong that Luffy grimaced, but to regain his strength, he still decided to eat it. Dorry laughed and said, "Once you get used to it, you'll find it delicious." Indeed, after just a few bites, Luffy's body fully recovered, becoming as strong as before. Seeing this, Dorry laughed and said, "Your body is so simple. Just eat, and you're strong again." But their joy was short-lived. Warcury, with the body of a giant pig, caught up with them. Brogy warned Luffy to stay away, but he chose to stay and fight. "Once I'm full, I'm not afraid of anything," Luffy shouted, then leaped high, activating Gear 3rd, creating a giant fist to attack Warcury. The terrible collision stunned Warcury, but Luffy also screamed in pain. The pig's body was as hard as steel. The 2 giants, seeing this, urged, "Retreat! Don't let these monsters catch up." At the same time, in the research area, Lilith was silently expressing her sorrow for Edison. However, they had no time to grieve, because, at that moment, Saturn suddenly appeared, putting everyone in danger. Below, Bonnie's group had finally defeated the 3 vice-admirals. The accompanying giant invited them onto the ship, but the very next second, he was slashed by Nusjuro's sword. His sudden appearance left everyone frozen in fear. The scene shifts to Vegapunk's secret room. Thanks to York, Marcus Mars finally found his way there. As expected, the original Den Den Mushi was there. Marcus Mars let out a cold laugh, saying that Vegapunk's luck had run out, then raised his arm, preparing to destroy the device immediately.